Hello and welcome back again, or welcome for the first time. Whichever it is, we're happy to see you. There's still a lot of room here. Free seats in the front, so do huddle up, I would say, because you want to hear what our next guest has to say. In 30 years, I think it has been mentioned before in one of the panels, by 2050, that is, 2/3 of people on this planet will live in urban areas. If you know that cities consume large quantities of energy and natural resources, as was mentioned by Hilda, among others, in the earlier panel, you can conclude that they are responsible for huge amounts of CO2 emissions and waste. So, how can the concept of an urban jungle help to counter those facts and help recreate urban areas as long-lasting ecological niches? Our next guest is Professor Stefano Mancuso. He's a biologist at the University of Florence in Italy, and he specialized in plants, and he discovered how sensitive and communicative they are, to the extent even that they help rethink human relationships. They're an inspiration in how to create an environment, literally with the environment, but also among us humans, that is sustainable, that allows each and every individual to live in a free-breathing way together with all the others. Professor Mancuso has worked, among others, to put his ideas in practice in Prato, near Florence. I'm curious about that, so I might ask you a question about that later, if you don't mention it yourself in your talk. So, the professor will share his concepts and ideas with us, and is open to your questions. So be prepared. I will be among you with my microphone. Just put up your hand when you have a question for him, and I'll be the mediator between the two of you. But first, Stefano Mancuso, with what he has to tell you. Professor, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good evening. It's a pleasure to be here, having the chance to talk about my preferred subject, plants, what they did for us, and what they can do for solving the biggest problem that humanity had in the course of its history, that it's global warming. And so, but let's start with some number, because we are normally blind to plant. We don't see plant because we are animals, and we just look at the reality with our animal eyes. We did everything in an animal way. Our organization are animal. Our way to work with the resources, it's animal. But plants have a completely different way to cope with reality. And it's a way that was so incredibly successful that, that was not my first one, but it's not important. I will tell you about the amount of plants. Because the first thing to know is how many plants there are on the planet. Just to show you how much we are blind to the plant. 86% of the biomass, that it's the weight of life, is made by plant. So if we would be able to wait, to put on a balance all the life on Earth, we would see that plants account for 86% of the life. Animals, altogether, mammals, fishes, birds, and so on, account for an irrelevant 0.3%. So, even if we think about ourselves as the dominator of the world, of the planet, from the point of view of life, we are really irrelevant, dangerous, but irrelevant. of course, everybody knows that by plants we have all the food. All the oxygen that we breathe is produced by plants. But plants are much more. The climate, the clouds are produced by the transpiration of the plant. And the plants overall are an incredible storage of CO2. So if the global warming on the planet is still not deadly, this is because of plant. So we need to ask ourselves, how is the situation of the plant? Because by the plant we are living. Plants are the engine of life. It would be a good idea to take care of this creature and to talk about the situation of plants. I want to say you something about an important date, that it's 2020. In the future, when we will look back at 2020, we will not remind or remember 2020 because of the COVID. In the same way, we are not looking back at 1918 as the year of the Spanish flu, but as the year of the First World War. So what's happened? What happened in the 2020 to be so important? Really to make 2020 a kind of epochal moment. There is a before and after 2020. So what happened was that in 2020, the amount of material produced by human exceeds the weight of the life. So the mass, in 2020, the mass of all the synthetic material produced by humanity in the course of its history exceeds the weight of the life. I don't know if you are feeling how incredible is this data. And just to help you in understanding the astonishing, dramatic data I'm telling you, 100 years ago, just 100 years ago, the amount of material produced by humanity in the course of its history was less than 1% of the life. So in one century, we have been able to reverse this percentage. And it's not easy at all. To reach such a dramatic and astonishing result, you need to work hard. You need to work from two different sides of the equation. First, you need to reduce the amount of life. And second, you need to produce as much material as you can. So let's see what we did with the first point of the equation. Starting with the plants. At the beginning of our civilization, 50,000 years ago, with the agriculture revolution, the amount of trees on the planet was 6 trillion, 6,000 billion. Today, the amount of trees on the planet is half, 3 trillion. But what is dramatic is that 2 trillions has been cancelled by us in the last 2 centuries. So among these 2 trillion trees that we cancelled in the last 2 centuries, there are, for example, all the primary forests of Europe. Today, when we hear about the state of the Amazonian forest, and we are, of course, worried, I hope so, about what is happening in Amazonian, we need to also to know that until the beginning of the 19th century, a great part of Europe was yet covered by a primary forest. Today, of that primary forest in Europe remain nothing, so not one tree. So we cut all the primary forest in really a handful of years. And why the primary forest is important. Why I proposed 10 years ago that who was going to cut Amazonian should be charged as with crime against humanity, because it's in the literally origin the term. So we are depending from the primary forest. Humanity depend from primary forest. The primary forests are the house of the living species. When we cut a primary forest, we cut the primary forest and all the species living inside. And life, it's a network. It's like a network made by many nodes. Any node, it's a species. When these species disappear, the network is much more weak. How much weak? The animals live in the forest. So we need to ask ourselves, how is the situation also of the animals after the destruction of the plants? In 2021, Professor Dasgupta of the University of Cambridge published a wonderful detailed report about the state of biodiversity on the planet. And from that report we can learn that in the last 50 years, from 1970 to today, the amount of animals on the planet was reduced by half. So I don't know if you are hearing this data. In the last 50 years, we reduced by half all the animal life. Today, you know what is how are composed the mammals on the earth? 97% of the mammals are humans or animals that we grow up for feeding us. The wild mammals are just 3% of all the mammals on the planet. The birds, 85% of all birds on Earth are poultry. And the fishes are completely disappeared. There is not one model saying that in the next 50 years there will be yet some wild fish. So this is the situation. This is what we have been able to produce. Really, again, I want to stress this fact in a handful of years, in less than 1 century. This is not the fruit of our history. This is the fruit of the last century. Today, the situation is that there are much more buildings and infrastructure than trees, and that the plastic in weight is double of the weight of all animals on the planet. In the same time, something also happens that was a revolution for our life. And this is the urbanization of humanity. This is also an incredibly important point, because as was mentioned, in 1950, 30% of the global population was living in a rural area. 30% was living in urban area and 70% in rural areas. In the 2050, this proportion at the global level will be completely reversed. So in 1 century, we started as 30% of people living in urban area in the 1950, and we will be 70% living in urban area in 2050. In 1 century, it's an astonishing velocity. Even today, in many regions of the world, the amount of people living in urban areas is incredibly high. In Italy, it's 71%. In Germany, it's 75%. In France, in Spain, in the UK, it's more than 80%. And in Belgium, you are world champion. 98% of the population lives in urban area. This is it was a phenomenon so incredibly fast and so important that change is changing the habit of our species. This is an important point. The difference between a generalistic species and a specialistic species. It's a biological point, but it's something that it's happening to us. What is a generalistic species? A generalistic species is a species that is able to live everywhere, is able to cope with many environments, is able to use a variety of resources. We were a generalistic species, together with rats and mice. We were able to adapt to every environment and to live and to multiply in every corner of the planet. On the opposite, there are specialistic species like the koala or the panda bear. They are able just to live in specific environment. When they are in such specific environments, they are incredibly good. But when that environment change, they are, of course, more likely to become extinct. So, to understand what the cities are becoming for us, we need to introduce another ecological concept, the concept of niche. The city is the ecological niche of humanity today. And what is a niche? This is a cactus. A cactus is a specialistic species. It's incredibly good in living in a special environment, that it's the desert. Inside of the desert, the cactus grow faster than any other organisms. It's able to multiply. It's able to colonize all the deserts. But outside of the desert, is unable to live, to survive. The cities are becoming exactly what the desert is for a cactus, for us. It's the only place where we are able to live. And inside of the cities, as any specialistic species, we are incredibly productive. This is why we are all together moving to urban areas. Because in urban areas, our productivity is incredibly higher. I think more or less 5 years ago, in a survey linking urbanization and the GDP, the gross domestic product, we have been able to see that this is a survey that's been done in 180 different countries. An increase in the urbanization of a country of 10% is bring to an increase of 61% of the GDP. So this is why we are all going to live inside of the cities. But this is a danger. This is the problem. It's an incredible danger because cities, irrespective of their history or their geographical localization, are a very specific environment, incredibly specific. Like a desert, all the deserts are more or less similar. All the cities are more or less similar. And is the idea of the city that is bringing us to a no-return point. Because how we imagine our city, this is the point. Look at this. They are two of a series of Renaissance painting produced by unknown Italian artists about the ideal city. Look at these two. And this is probably the most famous, has been attributed to Leon Battista Alberti, the father of Renaissance architecture. If you look at these ideal cities, they have something in common. There is nothing except buildings. There is no nature, not a single plant, not an animal, nothing. Because the idea that we have of the ideal city is of a place of humanity, the place just of humanity. The place where to live, where the human lives. No other organisms live together with us, need to live together with us. It's an ancestral idea from the beginning of when we, for the first time, we built our first house. The second thing that we did was to make a separation, something defending ourselves from a dangerous nature. But we are following buildings our city exactly in the same way as at the beginning of our history. Just as a mineral nest for our species. But this is the only way we can imagine a city. It's really, we really need just to build everything. We really need to make everything mineral. No. This is the way brought us to such number. At the moment, 70% of the energy of the world is consumed by city. 75% of the resources of the planet are consumed by cities. And they produce 75% of the CO2 emission and 70% of the waste. And the funniest part is that cities are just 1.7% of the habitable land of the earth. So it's nothing, an irrelevant part of the surface of the planet. So we are all packing ourselves very densely in such an incredible small amount of surface and producing the source of the change that make ourselves in danger. Because when I was talking to you, saying that specialistic species are very easily extincted because of change in behavior, this is exactly what we are doing. The change, at the moment we are producing by cities that threatening dangerous problem that is global warming. Global warming is something that probably is not really felt in its entirely importance. Global warming is unanimously declared as the biggest problem that humanity had in the course of its history. At the moment, the temperature of the planet is 1.5, more or less, degree higher than in the pre-industrial level. You all know. But do you really know what means 1.5 degree more? What means 1.5? Think about your... Normally, when we think about 1.5 degree, it's nothing. Okay, probably it's a little bit more, a warmer winter, a better springtime. But you need to think about the temperature of your body. We have 36.5 degrees on average of temperature. If we add 1.5, arriving at 38, we are in a condition that it's incompatible on the long time with the life. The last time the planet had the same amount of carbon dioxide of today, 421 ppm, part per million, was at the beginning of the Pliocene period. At that time, the temperature of the planet was 4 degrees more than today. Antarctic was partially forested, covered by forest, and the level of the sea was 25 meters higher. This is what will happen. Einstein was saying, if you have the same equation and you make always the same, with the same factor, you will get always the same result. In the next 1,000 of years, this is what will happen. But if you want to see what will happen in a shorter time, you can go on the the website of the Polytechnic of Zurich, where there is the current against the future cities, where you can put the name of your city to understand in 2070, in another 50 years, what will be the climate of your city. And so you will discover that Rome in 2050 will have the climate of today, Tunisia, that Paris in 2070, will have the climate of today, Istanbul, and that Brussels in 2070 will have the climate of today, Canberra. And you need also to ask yourself, okay, maybe for Brussels it's an improvement. But for Istanbul, or for Tunisia, or for Marrakesh, what will happen in 2070? And you can see there that most of that town will be literally not more livable place. Today, 0.8% of the surface of the planet is not livable for health limit. In 2070, this is a share of the surface of the planet will increase to 18%. On that 18%, today lives 2 billion of people that will move, not because they are going to find better economic condition. They will move because in the place where they are living today, it will be not more possible to live. This is the global warming. So all the rest is nothing. We all should be just interested in solving this problem. And to solve this problem, of course, we have a lot of discussion, and even during this festival, we heard a lot about decreasing the emission of CO2. It's how many years is that we are talking about decreasing emission? 50 years at least. And what's happening to the CO2 emission? They are increasing each year more than the last year. Between the 1990 and 12 and 2000, each year the CO2 was increasing by 1 ppm. Between 2000 and 2020, each year by 1.5. Between 2020 and 2020, by 2. So what we are doing is to produce each year more CO2, not less. And why this is happening? Because there is a very strict relationship between the production of CO2 and the richness of a country. No country will never reduce its richness. To do that, we need to wait at least another between 50 and 70 years to have the technological advances that will make us able to remain with the same level of richness but producing less CO2. But we have not 50 years. We need to find somewhere 50 years. And how can we do? We need to plant as many trees as we can. How many? 1 trillion trees. We need to plant another 1 trillion trees on the planet. It seems an incredible number, almost impossible. Normally, when you talk about 1 trillion trees, people say, oh, come on, 1 trillion, how much it will cost? There is no space on the planet. It's impossible to organize such an unbelievable effort. But we are talking about solving the biggest problem of humanity. The cost, it's irrelevant. The space, there is the space, sure. This is the global land use. So how we use today the land of the planet. But what is important is this 50% of the habitable land, it's used by agriculture, 50%. And okay, you say, we need to eat, and it's true. But let's have a look at how we use this 50%. I don't know if you can see, but I'm telling you, 77% of this 50% is used for livestock, for animals. And we produce by animals 20% of the calories used by the humanity, and 23% of the protein. And with the remaining 20% of land used directly for the cultivation of plants, we have 80% of the calories and 77% of the proteins. So you can understand that it's completely nonsensical, illogical way to use the land. Now I'm not telling you to become all vegetarians, but reduce of 1/4, 25% less animal product. And trust me, if you reduce 25% the animal food, you don't realize that you are doing something. By reducing 25% the animal food, we would save an amount of land that is spared to the surface of US. On that surface, we could plant 2 trillion trees, not 1, solving forever the problem of the global warming. Okay. A huge amount, the biggest part of this plan should be planted inside of the town, inside of the cities. Today, cities are, as I already told you, completely mineral. The arboreal surface of the cities of the planet, it's at the maximum 30%, but few cities in the world arrive to 30% of surface used by trees. Normally, in Europe, it's less than 10%. we did studies showing that the cities of the planet could accommodate at least 300 billion of trees. And this will change everything. This would change everything because we need to fix the CO2 where the CO2 is produced, in the cities. It's not so relevant when we produce CO2 here in Europe and we plant trees in Uganda. Doesn't work. We need to put trees where we produce CO2. And it's something that it's possible to do. And to arrange such a huge amount of plant in our cities, we need a new solution. We need to imagine a new way for our cities. We need to imagine something like this, where trees are not planted in the canonical place, in the parks, in the garden, in the flower bed. No, we need to put everywhere trees. In every place where it's possible to put a plant should be there. So, I think that my time is gone. Just a last slide. So this is my ideal city. This is the way we should imagine an ideal city, as a place where plant, human, and animals live together. An ecosystem that it's, cities are monoculture of human. And as you know, every monoculture is not stable. Every monoculture is incredibly weak. We need to produce a new urban ecosystem, and we hope that the new urban Bauhaus will help with this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mancuso. And as promised, during Professor Mancuso's speech, I saw some of you nod from time to time. I didn't see anyone do this, but I can imagine that some of you want to go into what has been said deeper or have a question, a practical one. For one, why haven't we already put all these trees out there if it's so easily done and such an effective solution?
It is a cultural heritage. So really, there is no technical, not economical issues about. I will give you an example. Think about our buildings, how they are made. The indoor of our building, no? I am a professor, so I never saw a school place in the university, from the first years until the university, with plants. Why? Why all our schools, our hospitals, our prisons, our hospice are completely deprived by plants? Is there any reason? No. It's just a matter of a culture. You have no idea about the incredible amount of benefit that having the plant inside would bring to us. Just to give you an example of one of the last papers published about what's happening in a school. When you put a plant inside of a classroom, after 2 years, the students increase the level of vote, I don't know how to say, sorry for my bad English, by 30%. The social life inside of the class was incredibly higher. And the number of days of maladies was reduced by 45%. Can you imagine any other single factor with such a small amount of money changing so rapidly the fate of a classroom. I don't think there is anything similar.
But I see someone else with a question, because I
Okay.
wasn't going to be the only one, Professor. Here I come. Please tell us who you are and then ask your question. Fire away. I'm going to keep a hold of the microphone. I've been taught by experience. So here we go.
Hello, my name is Maarten Vermeer. I am the CEO of the Institute for Erasmus Peace Solutions, an NEB partner that's building an NEB university with all other NEB partners, NEB friends and associated NGOs. My question would be, can we learn for developing the new humanism we are at the moment developing? Can we learn also from plants, how plants interact with other plants? Can we take lessons from that also for redesigning how we human beings behave amongst ourselves towards other human beings?
Well, it's a wonderful question, but also require a very long answer. Because
You have 10 minutes, Professor.
Okay. Everything in our society, in our living style, has been inspired by the fact that we are animals. So let's, for example, our society, how it's built. All of every organization, human organization, how is made? Is made exactly as we are. We are hierarchical, with a brain governing specialized organs. So we have 2 lungs for air, for breathing, we have 2 eyes, we have 1 stomach, just 1 or 2 organs, specialized. And what we did is to take this kind of organization and to reproduce everywhere. Look at your organization, I'm pretty sure that there will be a head, and the specialized organs under the head. My university is made in the same way. Our governments are made in the same way. Our computer are made in the same way. There is a processor that it's the head, and there is also and different specialized organs inside. But it's the only way to build an organization, and is the better way to build an organization. If you ask me, I would have asked for a plant organization in my body. Why? Because animal organizations are so incredibly weak. It's enough that 1 organ fail and the entire organization fail. Now, why plants have no single or double organs? Because they evolved to be resistant. You can remove 90% of a plant and the plant is still living. A plant makes something completely different with respect to us. We are concentrating specialization, the plant is diffusing. So, in other words, a plant breathes with all the body, see with the whole body, think about with the whole body. And this is a much modern way to imagine an organization. Internet is made exactly as a plant. There is no central command, there is not a command center. So this is just to give you a first example about what we could learn by plant. Diffuse organization against centralized organization. Second, it's something that when you are still living, so if you are unable to move away from the place where you were born, the community, so the other living organisms around you became extremely important for you. During the lockdown, the hard lockdown when we were stuck in the house, our community was incredibly important, not for supporting us, because we were unable to move. I will give you, so when we animals, we say that we solve the problems, 90% of the times we escape our problems. So we use movement to move away from the problem, but the problem is still there. In the case of the plant, this is not possible. In the case of the plant, when there is a problem, the problem must be solved. And they can do that because of their organization, because of their incredible strong sense of a community. We have this false idea that competition is the main force shaping living organism on Earth. This is true just for animals, for few animals. So it's true just for the 0.3% of the life. It's an irrelevant part of the life that work through competition. The rest, the 99% remaining, work through collaboration. That in the life it's called symbiosis. Symbiosis is the most important and powerful source of evolution.
Thank you, Professor.
Nothing.
And I'm sorry to say, yes, you can applaud him, of course.
Thank you.
There are more people with questions for you, but I'm on a strict time budget, so I cannot allow the question to be asked here and now. But the upside is that there are some minutes now, 15 minutes, that will change the scenery, or the stage rather, and you are still around. You're not on
Yes,
a time
I'm here.
budget. Aha.
I'm just going down.
Voila. Do mingle, ask your question in person, have a conversation. That's what
Okay.
this all is about.
You are
And
welcome.
by all means, thank you, Professor, for making yourself available
Thank you.
to us. One last big round of applause. Professor Mancuso, thank you so much.
Thank you. Grazie.
And when you're ready discussing this very important issue with Professor Mancuso and amongst each other, don't forget to come back by 8:30, because we have one last event, something you will want to see. A dance company is here to bow out this busy day in a soulful way. So hope to see you at 8:30. Thank you very much for being here. Enjoy the rest of the evening.